Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Joining Me Today podcast. Now, that is what you call an intro for a podcast. So, you don't need to pay people to do your own intros. You can do your own intros yourself through your beautiful vocals. But anyway, and stuff, today I've got another fantastic episode lined up for you guys. I've got a fantastic guest. Can't wait to jump in. 14th episode. It's going to be amazing. It's my podcast. Of course it is. I'm joking. I'm joking. But yeah, no, I can't wait to jump in. But before we do, song recommendation time and stuff. I always do a song recommendation with every single interview, every single podcast episode I do. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recommending a song that I've been loving recently. Fantastic metal song and stuff from a band called Hot Milk. Fantastic Manchester band and stuff from over here and stuff like that. Sort of like a kind of like the main sort of two singers and stuff like that. It's like male sort of female sort of like dynamic. Fantastic singers, and it's going to be a song called Party on My Deathbed. Fantastic metal song. You guys should definitely go check it out. And I will just say there is a chance Song of the Year, it's released this year, Song of the Year time for me. I do my Song of the Year every year. Could be a winner. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it is, but it could be a winner by the end of the year. So I might keep an eye and ear out for that. But anyway, now into the main portion of the podcast. Today on the show, I have got actor, I have got streamer, I've got all around fantastic guy. Welcome to the podcast, TJ Smith. How are you doing, sir?
Hello, hello. How's it going? Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I'm to check that out. Hot Milk, Party on My Deathbed.
Yeah, it's a fantastic song. I'll be honest, I don't actually know why they're called Hot Milk. I don't know if it's just one of those because metal bands they like to be kind of quirky
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
But it's a really good song. You should definitely check it out.
I will. Thank you for the rec as well. I appreciate it.
Well, with every episode and stuff like that, I don't just like to do my own song recommendation. There we go. We got it out in the end. I also like to find out my guest song recommendation. So, what song would you like to recommend out to the listeners?
That is wow, I was not prepared. Let me rack my brain real quick. I want to get something that pairs with this Hot Milk Party on My Deathbed recommendation. And so you're saying it's like a good metal song? Is it like upbeat
Yeah.
and hardcore and stuff?
Oh, fantastic.
Um,
Yeah.
there is this band called Enter Shikari that like was like metal meets pop punk meets EDM.
Oh,
Uh,
I know them. Luckily, they are
you know
really
them. All
good.
right, great. I don't have to explain anymore then. But no, like their big hit song, I think it was Sorry You're Not a Winner back from like 2007. If any of your viewers haven't heard that song, check it out. Have you heard that song?
Unfortunately, I haven't. No, I've been meaning to check out Enter
Okay.
Shikari because I've heard so many good things about, it, but I haven't checked them out yet. So I might have to. So we're swapping recommendations here.
Yeah. I love it.
Get right in the metal.
Yes.
um, sort of like usually and stuff for my first question and stuff because we're already on the music topic and stuff like that. Whatever. Usually, I'd go into sort of saying how you got into entertainment and all stuff like that. But I'd like to because we're already on the music chat. I know that music is a big part of what you've done in your sort of like career, whatever. What sort of been your experience with sort of music, sort of growing up and stuff like that? What's your kind of relationship with music?
Yeah, sure, sure. So to give some extra context, I have been, have done music on YouTube off and on for like the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, including doing like a debut album and whatnot. So growing up, my mom started me on piano back when I was like 4 years old or 5 years old or something like that. The standard Suzuki method and all that. And then I picked up cello starting in like second grade or something. So I was like 7 years old and played it for like 10 years. Was when the Olympics were in Salt Lake City. I was living in that city at that time and auditioned for and got into the Utah Youth Olympic Symphonic Orchestra. And I was like one of the youngest people in the whole thing. Everyone else was like in, 16, 17, 18. I was like 13 years old and way at the way back of the orchestra for the cello section. I just like barely made the cut. But so I did cello for like 10 years basically. Then at some point in high school, when I was probably like around 16, my best friend had like 3 or 4 guitars, and like gifted me one of them. It was like the one that he didn't play anymore. And so he was like, "Do you want my old guitar?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I started playing guitar, got into like pop punk. Um, Probably around that time or shortly before that, started writing like pop punk songs. Somehow got in this EDM music production program for the computer called Music Maker or Music Magics, one of the two.
Hmm.
Um, and was like making terrible electronica songs. But it was very fun. And then yeah, that kind of like blended together in college, and I started like actually making music videos for YouTube, and like writing and recording not pop punk songs, but like something in that blend. Genres are weird, when you're like writing original music. It's like you don't want to fit into a genre, but at the same time you have to have a genre to describe to people what type of music you make. um Anyways, that's a really quick summary of music growing up.
It's quite funny that you said about sort of saying like, oh, being in part of that Olympic choir, because I'm a massive fan of the Olympics and stuff like that. So hearing that to me, I'm like, wow, that's like so cool and stuff. Like that must have been
Yeah,
crazy, like to be 13 and be doing something that big at that age.
that was pretty wild. It We like, I think we performed at the opening of the Olympics that year. Yeah, it was very wild.
Wow, I'm just like it's made me a little bit giddy. I'm like, that's so cool. I know that's sad. You probably didn't expect to hear that and stuff, but
No, no, no. That's very good. It's exciting when something else that you've done makes people excited, because I get that vibe as well. Like that. So I understand. That's awesome. That's awesome.
well, I'm sort of like now talking a bit sort of in terms of like YouTube and stuff like that and sort of music, whatever and stuff. Like you obviously and stuff like that, you've done YouTube content and stuff like that. You've done stuff with like the Warp Zone and all that, which we're gonna like sort of cover later and stuff. But you're sort of most known for your Highway sing along series and stuff like that, sort of right at the beginning. So, sort of, how did the YouTube channel you wanted to create content? How did that all come about? And then how did you create that Highway sing along series?
Yeah. So I started doing YouTube in 2009. It was like November 2009. I was still in college, and I started making. I was really into the concept of medleys, where like you take a song with the same chord progression, two songs with the same chord progression, and you more or less like mash them up together. Which is like a big thing at that point in time, late 2000s. Like DJ Earworm, if you remember
Hmm.
that, or if any of your viewers
Very
remember that.
vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, that was like his thing. It's like he would take a bunch of different pops. He would make an end of the year mashup. He may still be doing it. I don't know. And he would take all these like radio pop songs and combine them into like a very long track, and it would just kind of seamlessly transition from song to song, and generally and like intermix different lines from different parts of the songs, because a lot of them would have the same chord progression. It was a fascinating thing. So at that point in time, I was really into that. So I started making these really awkward medleys where I would play it on my acoustic guitar that my best friend gave me 3 years ago. Just like me sitting in my college dorm room, and at one point I put 100 songs together and I called it the 100 song medley. And it was so long, it took like 14 minutes to play through, that my little video camera was a flip camera. That was like this type of camera back then, and it could only record for like 10 minutes at a time, and at 10 minutes it would like end the recording. So I split it up into two parts. I had to split it up into two, part one and part two. This is so embarrassing. And so I stopped. I think I stopped playing at the end of part one, and then like hit recording in part two. And so I had to upload them as like two separate videos: 100 song medley part one, 100 song medley part two. Anyway, so that's what was started my YouTube video career or whatnot. That was these medleys. Um, and I was inspired to get into YouTube because of my college friend Kurt Hugo Schneider, who is like a big. Have you heard of him before?
Yeah, like I've heard like through different people saying about him, yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't. Back in the day, he would do a lot of music videos using a green screen and the like multiple versions of the same person. So like, record, it would be an a cappella song. And so then when they did the video, they would record the same person in like different areas of the room or whatever, singing the different parts. And it was like a very cool visual trick. It was way early YouTube. This is like 2008 YouTube. Like, YouTube started in like 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. So
Yeah.
it was a big deal. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying like, yeah, 2005, like you're right, yeah.
Yeah. So it was at that time, it was like, it was fascinating. It was a big thing that like people were doing visual green screen tricks, and it was in music and all of it combined. So Kurt did before we even graduated college. Kurt had already been on the Oprah show and the Ellen show. And
Wow.
it was like, where do you go from there? Like that was like,
Yeah, like
um,
oh god. And that sort of like when you were sort of seeing, because obviously, you know what I mean, he was a mate of yours and stuff like that. When you were seeing like all the success he was getting, whatever, like you must have been thinking like wow, like sort of, because that was early days of YouTube where people weren't really getting on talk shows and stuff. So it must have been mental to see your friend being like, wow, look how well he's doing.
yeah, exactly. And it was like, I should try it. There's something to this. I should try this. I should figure out what I can do, on this platform and whatnot. And it was also, it was really creative freedom to like do whatever you want. I was in a band at the time. We were at a pop punk slash slightly metal. uh I wouldn't call it metal. What would I call it? We would throw in like metal breakdowns in our songs for
Mhm.
funsies. Um but and we had like a scream. Technically we had a screamer as well. So that like late 2000s, early 2010s. Yeah, late 2000s, early 2010s. Screamo. It was like screamo pop punk is what I would say it was. um and so, when you have a group of people who are like working together to create a creative endeavor, there's a lot of give and take, especially with like a band. There's some songs that are going to be like, your baby, and there's some songs that are going to be somebody else's baby, and you're going to have to like collaborate together and give and take. And so with the YouTube side of things, it was like a way to be, I could really just pursue like whatever I wanted it to, whatever these creative outputs. I had full control basically, and just like it was a different dynamic, and that was very interesting to me. So it was like, and even nowadays, like I love having the different options. So I love doing acting, like on a set, being an actor, where it's like I grew up playing football, American football, and in any like team based dynamic, it's generally each person does their job to the best of their ability. And when everybody does their own personal job, then the whole thing works together really well.
Mm.
What
Oh
did you
yeah.
play any sports growing up?
Um, hmm. I'm a bit. I mean, that answers that one. The most I ever did was I was on a netball team. Funny enough, and the reason that was because I thought it was volleyball, and then found out on the first session it was netball and stuff. And we went to a tournament and stuff like that. And stuff. This was like elementary school sort of level, maybe like very early middle school to like put it in an American context.
Uh-huh.
And basically, we didn't even score 1 point the whole tournament. It was it was shambolic.
That's crazy. What was there positions on netball that you guys played?
Um, to be honest, I think we kind of just because like you have very set positions. It's very like set of like you're in this role, you're the center,
Mhm.
you're the goal scorer, and there's even things like only two players can score in netball and stuff like that. Like I don't know how much you know about it or sort of whatever, but sort of
Nothing.
like
I'm learning right now. Thank you for teaching me.
just for clarification, do you know what
Yeah.
netball is?
No. And
Oh,
I like Googled it while you were like talking about it. I'm like looking at these pictures while you're talking about it. It looks interesting.
it's basically it's considered the female basketball, but that's kind of like it's not really that way. It's more just sort of like a different version of basketball, and so it's a lot more about like making sort of quick sort of like passes. Like you can't move around, and like basketball is obviously very move around, and it's a lot more sort of tactical. Like you've got to stand there at that right time, so I catch the ball, pass it to you, that sort of way. And stuff, but it's quite a hard sport. Like there's no backboard, so you're just shooting and hoping it goes in and stuff. And yeah, my team didn't do that well. Let's just say that.
That's so interesting that people are like locked in their position. And I'm looking at these pictures and saying that there's no backboard. Like I would not be able to make a point either. So
I
wow.
just remember like I was just trying it and I was making points and I was like, dang it. And they were so good because we weren't really a professional sort of team like for a school, but all the other like schools were like they had the proper kit on. We just went in like our just normal like jerseys. They were like the jerseys, they had numbers, and I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
anyway,
funny.
going from negative things to positive things and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, your YouTube channel led to, like I said, you know what I mean. You had your fantastic highway sing along series and stuff. Like you know what I mean. It's got like so much sort of like attention, and I've seen the
Yeah.
comments. People love like that
Yeah.
stuff. They say they go back to it now, even. Like what? How did that all come about, and what was all that like at the time?
Right. So Kurt, my buddy, we ended up we moved together to Los Angeles after shortly after graduating college in 2010, and we I kind of just kept doing my own little YouTube stuff and helping him with his channel as well. At one point, I was like, I got to try different things. I got to try. Uh, I was doing music videos. They're mostly covers, because like that was kind of how you, and generally on YouTube, that was how you had success back then, and even kind of nowadays. It's like you take a song that exists and you do like your own version of it, your own spin on it, and I was like wanting to do something else. I was wanting to like try new things. So I wrote down like just a ton of ideas. And one of them was this concept of highway sing-alongs, where it's like when you're stuck in traffic, especially in LA, you're going like sometimes like 2 miles an hour. Uh and I was like, what if you just like try to get somebody to sing along with you while you're stuck in this like gridlock traffic? And that works really well in LA because that happens all the time. It's not rush hour, it's like rush day from 7 a.m. to like 7 p.m. There's traffic on the 405, which is like the one of the main highways. So I asked a friend to like film one with me, and that was the Backstreet Boys one. You are my fire. And so like the audience was super passionate, the people that was like filming on the highway, but it was like a bit limited. It was like, like millennials, maybe some Gen Xers, and that's it. None of the boomers that were on the highway knew this song. So for the second one, I went with a more classic song, Building Up Buttercup, which I felt like, pretty much everybody knows. And that is the one that has like blown up and continues to do really, really well. And people will come back and watch it. But it didn't take off at first. I posted it in like, I don't know, June or something, May or June of that year. And it didn't really take off until like August. So a couple months later, I think somebody posted it to Reddit, and it hit like that was like the front page of the internet back then. Eventually it like hit the number one spot or whatever. And so like that particular video took off, and that's what really launched the whole thing, was it being posted on Reddit. And then within like 24, 48 hours, it was being featured on like news shows around the world, like Good Morning America. There was like European news shows that were talking about it in the morning. I got interviewed by what was it? Not Dateline, but like Insider Edition or something. It's an American
Inside Edition,
news.
I think. Yeah.
Inside Edition, yeah. And some other stuff. And then Nissan reached out and they were like, we want to make a commercial based on this concept. And I was like, okay. And that ended up like running during the Super Bowl, and made the baseball World Series and stuff like that. So the concept has done very well from that particular moment.
And yeah, like sort of it's quite funny and stuff like that because I only sort of found out about it recently when I was just like researching for this interview, and I sort of saw it and stuff like that, and I was like, this is genuinely like really good. And I feel like you did, it's not carpool karaoke like what James Corden did, but it's very much got a kind of a similar vibe to it. It's about that sort of singing in the car and how fun that is, and you kind of did that before he did carpool karaoke in a way.
Yeah, so Carpool Karaoke came out like a year or two later, and one can't notice the similarities between the two concepts.
Pay this man his royalties. James Corner, come on, pay him.
But they changed it just enough. You know what I mean? Maybe they're inspired. Maybe they could, maybe it's just there's a small line of credit somewhere. Who knows? It's all good.
So sort of now moving sort of away from sort of like music and stuff like that, but not necessarily YouTube and stuff. Not only sort of, if you've done music stuff and obviously you love your music, but also you've done acting stuff, especially with the Warp Zone guys and stuff. A fantastic channel. You guys should definitely go check it out and stuff. How did you come to sort of know all the sort of guys, and what was your like the first videos you appeared in?
Yeah, so the Warp Zone guys are like some of my best friends in LA. I just very recently moved out of LA. I moved to Texas. Um, I don't know if I would have stayed in LA for like 13 years if it were not for them. They are just genuinely good human beings in a city that I feel like. So I met them within a couple months of moving to LA via more or less Kurt. Um, Kurt had like a meeting at this company called Maker Studios, and the Warp Zone guys were kind of working there, and I ended up meeting them. Let's say like September, October of 2010, and still very good friends with them to this day. I really don't know if I would have like mentally, emotionally survived in LA that long without those guys. They are some of my genuinely best friends. And I text them all the time. I work with them all the time. We're hopefully going to continue working together. So I love their brand of comedy. I love what their sketch comedy. We've written songs together. We've filmed a lot of things together. We did The Office of Smite is a series that we did together. Um, just I love when you can work with your friends. It makes the work more fun, and I think it deepens the friendship as well if everything goes well, of course. Um, and so I've just genuinely loved being friends and working with them for the last 10 plus years. They're genuinely good dudes.
Oh yeah, like the channel and stuff like that has been like fantastic sort of all over the years, even despite some things that happened, which we'll go into and stuff with
Sure.
a certain media company, which we'll get onto in a sec. But yeah, like it's also quite funny because like I was just sort of looking through some sort of our Warp Zone stuff and stuff like that recently, and I was thinking like, how long have I known them? Because I was like, I've known about these guys for ages. And then I remembered one video and stuff where I remembered the day it came out because it literally came out on my birthday and stuff.
Yo.
And it was I like don't know if you because I don't think you were in this one and stuff like that. It was Sims 4 in real life was one
Okay.
they
Okay.
did. And I
Gotcha.
was like when did that release? 2014. I'm like, I've been fans of Warp Zone for 9 years. And I was like, that's crazy how time just it must be crazy for you as well to think you've done so much content with them for like so many years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome that it came out on your birthday. When is your birthday?
5th of September and stuff.
Nice.
September. I'm a Virgo, if
Nice.
that means things apparently.
Coming up about a month or so.
Yeah, gonna be 21 years old.
Yo. Happy early birthday. You got any plans for
Um, no.
it?
I genuinely haven't actually thought about it because the thing is because it's like right after summer. I'm more thinking about summer things I'm gonna do, and then it's like September comes around. I'm like, oh yeah, it's my birthday, isn't it? So I just like totally forget about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, so I've sort of already sort of mentioned it. I've already sort of touched on it and stuff, whatever, and stuff. You mentioned about Maker Studios and stuff like that. That was an MCN. Unfortunately, Warp Zone and stuff like that went through a certain drama with a certain MCN and stuff called Defy Media and stuff. Or like sort of, I don't know how sort of like a sort of like what was your kind of like experience working with the Warp Zone while they were under Defy Media and sort of what was sort of the atmosphere? What I mean? What was your feelings about the big shutdown that happened and what was the sort of atmosphere around basically the shutdown?
Yeah, yeah. And there's other places that I have like one perspective or a little bit limited information on like what all happened. But other people have talked about it too. The Warp Zone guys talked about it on their video on their own channel. I think the Smosh guys have talked about it off and on through the years as well, because like that was a big part of it too. But basically, So you're well informed. You know about Maker. You know the word MCN, multi-channel network. You know about Defy. So at one point in the YouTube creator sphere, in general, it's difficult. Just in general, it's difficult to make a career out of being creative. That's a challenge. Then you add on top of it that you only get paid based on how popular your videos are based on views. Then things came out like Patreon, which helped make that less so of a dependency. But Defy was running this model where it was they would buy a YouTube channel and then they would pay the creators a salary. So it was you can be creative and continue to be creative without having your pay dependent on how successful your videos are. And so the channels that did really is kind of a bit, I guess, like YouTube socialism, where it's the channels that did really well. And there was also brand deals bringing in money too, and Defy would help with that. But the projects or channels or whatever that did really well would help pay for the channels, help cover the salaries of the channels that were not doing as well at that moment in time, and so if different channels had different moments of success throughout the year or whatever, it would kind of help balance everything out. Everybody had a safety net. Well, it turns out that apparently behind the scenes, Defy was also doing some shady stuff, which I don't know too much about. But I don't want to misspeak and get sued and whatever. But from what I understand, there was some shady stuff going on. And I think for more of that information, I think one of the Smosh guys has talked about it. Do you know, on a video or something?
I know sort of it was MatPat and stuff. I know he did the big breakdown,
Yes.
especially about the
Yes.
the wages and the salary stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, check out if your viewers out there want to look more into it. It sounds like check out MatPat's video. I watched that one as well a while ago. So anyways, so at any point, at any at one point, it became unsustainable and Defy more or less shut down. And from what I understand, that day, that hour that it came out, the Defy had run out of money. I think it was a Friday. It was everything was abandoned within the company itself gave up the ghost within 30 minutes of this news coming out. And people were still working in the building. And it was chaos inside because the Warp Zone guys were there at the building. And it was people were just taking chairs and tables and equipment because it was this company ceased to exist. It was wild. They were the guys who were there were just telling me about the chaos that was people just freaking out. One, they didn't know. So imagine you're working a salaried job and then all of a sudden you find out that your job doesn't exist anymore. You're not going to have benefits. You're not going to have a salary anymore come Monday. You're not you have the floor is ripped out from underneath you. And that's what happened to all those people working there. So at that point, from what I understand, all the channels were going to be sold because they didn't, the creators like Warp Zone and Smosh, and I assume MatPat as well, didn't own their channel. So because the company had so much debt, they were going to be selling off the channels to the highest bidder. And potentially that highest bidder could be someone from another country who didn't care about the IP and the community that these people had built. And they just wanted the subscriber numbers. And then we're going to just delete all the videos and make it entirely new. So I believe what happened is Rhett and Link kind of stepped in and helped buy a bunch of the channels, or Good Mythical Morning or whatever, buy a bunch of the channels. And then slowly over time, the creators themselves have been able to work up enough money to buy them back. So really huge shout out to Rhett and Link for stepping in and helping save huge communities and swaths of the YouTube creator sphere. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of that whole situation stuff, watching it from an outsider's perspective and stuff like that, and then seeing the stories that came out about it. I just thought it was crazy. I think the craziest thing for me was when they said, I think it was on Smosh's video sort of covering it, where it was literally they were just sort of working on stuff, whatever. The company had said, you're going to see something or something about we're going to see something about bankruptcy or whatever, or we're struggling, we're fine, we're fixing it. And then it was literally like the weekend passed and it was like ceased to exist. And then they didn't pay them. And I was like, are you joking? You're literally when you're a company that's saying you're getting these millions and millions in revenue to just be like, oh well, bankruptcy, pack up shop, whatever, who cares? I was like, that's just crazy. And I was scared for Smosh and Warp Zone. I was just like, they're done. The moment I saw that, I was like, because I couldn't really see them getting saved, because especially because of like where YouTube was at the time and finances, I thought you're gonna have a lot of companies who won't want to touch it. And then, like you said, a company will come in and go, we'll take the followers, take the numbers. There we go. We can make this into, I don't know, a clothing sort of brand, and we'll big that up. And like, I can't like believe, like, sort of from your conversations with the Warp Zone guys and stuff like that, what were like their feelings and stuff about it at the time?
Oh, it was just soul crushing. This thing that they had worked on, for I think what year was that? Do you remember? It was like 2017.
I think it was beginning of 2019, I think was when it was saved. It was November 2018 was when it collapsed.
Okay. Yeah. So like they almost have been working on it for like 10 years, building this, imagine putting your life into something for 10 years and
Hmm.
then suddenly it's, crazily ripped out from underneath you. Had no idea. There's nothing you could do about it. And yeah, heartbreaking, soul crushing. It's like, what the hell are we going to do? Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Okay, so now to go back from negativity back to positivity and stuff. You actually sort of already sort of brought it up and stuff. The Office of Smite series, a series that I hold and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Sort of quite close to me. It was one of my favorite series watching back in the day. I actually am a massive fan of the US Office, which I'm not allowed to say in the UK. I'd never even watched The Office by the time I'd watched that. So that was my first mockumentary style series and stuff. Obviously, you appeared in it and stuff. What was filming that like? What was that whole experience?
That's awesome, dude. Do you play Smite? Have you played Smite?
Actually, it encouraged me to play it, and I'm not even joking. And I
Yeah,
really
nice.
liked it. I was a massive fan.
Yeah, which characters were your mains?
So I used to main at first it was four, but I didn't really get on board with four. And then I switched to Ymir and stuff like that because I really liked all these like, ice attacks and it really suited my play style and stuff like that. So and then after that and stuff like that, I then wanted to swap up because it wasn't really working with Ymir. I tried Artemis, but it didn't really work for me, so I just went back to Ymir again.
Dude, Emir is great. He was one of my first mains as well. Like being able to like freeze people, wall them off, slow them down. Like he's amazing.
Yeah, and the thing is, I just wish I was better at the game because I'm just constantly getting killed, and I'm like, oh, dang it.
Emir doesn't have any escapes. That's like the challenge with him and Artemis too. They're just kind of if they get peeled off, they're dead. They're just
So yeah, so
uh,
like, what was that whole
yeah.
experience filming the series? You played Apollo in the series, I believe, didn't you?
Yes. So yeah, again, working with the Warp Zone, always a pleasure. They're just wonderful dudes. They're so funny. They're so creative. So they in episode 1, they originally cast one of the Warp Zone guys' brothers named Chris, and he was the original Apollo. And I think like he couldn't when he couldn't work with their filming schedule, I believe, or something like that. So they ended up recasting and asking me to be, and I was like, hell yeah, that sounds great. Um, it was a delight. It was so much fun. I think I already was playing Smite by that point, and I, I never play Apollo. I never play ADCs much. I love playing Anubis and other mages for whatever reason. Like the mage mentality is what works for my brain. Having to like base most of your damage on your basic attacks is not just how my brain likes to work. It likes to work with like big mage spells or whatever. But yeah, filming with them is so much fun. I love Bacchus's character in all of that. He's just so fun and funny. And Gerard in real life, the guy who plays in Gerard, is just a joy to be around in real life. He's so passionate about everything. Um, so anyways, an absolute joy to film those, and I appreciate the honor every time they ask me to be an actor in something. It's like an honor that I feel it's just appreciation and joy for the opportunity to like work with them again on and be on screen with them. So love it, love that.
The thing I also like as well and stuff like that is that I don't know if this was intentional or not and stuff. I know that sort of because you came in, like I said, in the second episode and the sort of the beginning scene, the cold open and stuff, to use the professional term and stuff, was it was like the warp zone guys. I think So Hinky as well, they were like the sort of just the guys that just sort of run in the middle, whatever, like the soldiers and stuff, and they're sort of all playing around, sort of like, oh, Apollo's this and stuff, and then it's just you just walk in behind and stuff and you just set him on fire, and it's quite funny just seeing this sort of like, actually now it's this guy playing it and stuff. It was quite funny. It was a really good like sort of series. Like, do you know if there ever was any plans to continue it after? Because I know there was rumblings about there was meant to be a season two and stuff. I don't know if that fell apart, if you know anything about that.
I mean, they would love to do a season two, even to this day, I'm pretty sure. But it was like it was a promo for the Smite. I think at that point, Smite was still in beta, and so the whole thing was a promo for the official release of the game, like coming out of beta. So Hi-Rez helped fund the show because there's a lot of costuming, and they had to get a lot of people to film and do the lighting and all that stuff. So if Hi-Rez ever wanted to help fund it again, then yeah, they would love to do a season two. But without that type of funding, it's hard to justify doing that when they could be doing more original stuff. So, but I mean, I'm sure they're totally open to it, as far as I know. We
Yeah.
always talk about how much we love that show and we wish we could do another season. So
That's what we got to do. We've got to keep drumming up hype and stuff like that and hope high res notice and stuff, and then season two.
yeah.
um and sort of like once again sort of staying on the warp zone sort of thing, whatever and stuff, like, can you think of any other sort of videos and stuff like that that you sort of film with the guys and stuff that really like stand out to you, that sort of like mean a lot to you?
Um, the Johnny Cash Mortal Kombat lawyer video. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, that one's really good.
That we often reminisce about that one and like trying to figure out another something to do like that. Where it's like, I mean, that was, first of all, it's a long video. It's like more or less 10 minutes of just dialogue back and forth, and there's like this emotional journey through it all, getting to be this kind of character who uh gets pulled down a few notches and then climbs right back up by the end of the video. um it's yeah, I would say that like the Johnny Cash, that video is not Johnny Cash, Johnny Cage, the Johnny Cage Mortal Kombat lawyer video is probably one of our favorite ones to reminisce on. I also love, at one point we did a Santa video together. Have you seen that one?
um I think they've done quite a few Santa ones, so I'll probably watch it
That's
at some
true.
point. Yeah.
That's true. We did one that was it was like a whole song and dance, like literally singing and dancing. We did it a couple years ago. I think it was during the pandemic. I think it was. Anyways, and so that was a very big ordeal. I also helped like record their stuff for a while, for like a year or two, whenever they did a singing music video or an acapella or whatnot. They had just started doing the acapellas, and they'd done like a small number of them, and I was like, because I'd worked with music for so long, I was like, can I please, I want to take y'all to the next level. Just come either record with me or send me your like audio stems and let me just enhance them a little bit, because I want you guys, you're so funny, you're so clever. Let me just work with your recordings a little bit and make them even better. And so I was actually working with them on the record, and then eventually started coming over to my apartment and recording in my closet. And that was fun. It's just, again, like anytime you get to work with your friends, it's like so much fun. And me and Ryan Tellez would do a lot of projects together. He's so creative. He's so brilliant and so funny. And anyways, so we got to do a lot of music projects together and recording together throughout the years. And I mean, there's Office of Smite. There's also the Smite parody videos we did together. Almost every single video I've done with them has been a joy, and like a like top tier experience overall. They're just such great dudes.
And yeah, like I said and stuff earlier on in the episode and stuff like that, you guys should definitely go check their stuff out. Fantastic stuff. They've got a brilliant sort of back catalogue and stuff. It's got my amazing guest on there. You know what I mean? What else? What else is there that you need in your life? And sort of now, like sort of sort of going away from the past and stuff like that. Now, sort of looking to the future and stuff like that. Sort of what are your sort of like future plans in terms of content creation, or maybe even outside of that space?
Yeah, I would love to. So I just moved to Texas, and I've got a green screen now behind me. I was like, oh, um, I so I've kind of around 2018, I kind of moved. I was starting around 2014, 2015. I started doing streaming and kind of more and more towards streaming. I have ADHD and just got diagnosed like 2 years ago. So it explained a lot of like why I just wasn't able to consistently put out videos for a long time. I could do it when I was really inspired or otherwise really, really motivated. ADHD brains work well with like challenges. If it's a challenge, if there's a deadline, if you're personally interested in it, uh, if there's rewards for it, like gamifying stuff, and so video games, etc. It was just really hard for me to put out consistent YouTube videos, and it was really hard for me to actually sit down and edit videos. And so finally, when I started like really thinking about myself with ADHD, I was like, oh, this is really starting to make a lot of sense. But so I started moving into streaming. Streaming was like just easier for my brain to do and for me to do consistently. And I'd say by like 2018, I was like pretty much a full-time streamer. And then that really persisted through the pandemic. For like the last year or so, I've kind of like taken a step back. Streaming is a really hard career to be sustainable. And I've been doing content creation now for like 14 years. So it's very much, I am a, this is what I want my life to be. And so how do I make sure that I am uh, able to continue doing it for another 15, 20 years, and I'm really thinking about that. How do I continue doing this? So um, I, I'm switching more over to YouTube with gaming videos. That's kind of, I think that gaming is like this universal language, this global language that can be shared amongst people.
Mm.
Um, a game comes out and anyone in the world can experience it versus like if a TV show or a movie come out, sometimes definitely with TV shows and movies a little bit, it's a little bit different experience. A lot of shows are not available worldwide. But with like a game, for whatever reason, that's like a really accessible global concept right now. And it's continuing to grow as I'm sure you know.
Mm.
Um, and so I think that gaming continues to be like something that I want to focus on in the future. I would love to shift a little bit away from streaming, still do streaming because I think it's top tier way to engage with people and to have interaction, more emphasis on YouTube videos, and then hopefully sketches and skits, like vertical. I've got this green screen, so like little vertical sketches, TikToks more or less, but put them on all the different platforms and see what happens. But I just moved to Texas a couple weeks ago, so this is all very new and like ideas, and we'll have to see what works and what I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks and what doesn't. So very much an experimental phase right now, I guess, is the summary.
Yeah, so it's quite exciting stuff. So you know what I mean? We could be seeing some skits and stuff like that, even from yourself in the future and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's I would love to do skit sort of content and stuff like that, but I think from the little bits I've done, it's just I feel like I mostly struggle with sort of getting like scripts down where I felt like I really liked it and sort of shooting it in the way I sort of want. And I think over time I more sort of went like, if I'm gonna do this like skit stuff, I'd rather sort of film something else. If I'm gonna set up all cameras and get other people involved and stuff, like my domain's more I love music videos and stuff. Funny enough, so to me, I'm a lot more. If I'm gonna set up a crew, I'd rather do sort of music video to be honest, but yeah, so it's quite exciting. It's quite interesting. You said going away from streaming because a lot of people would say no, like go away from YouTube, but you're actually saying like I'm gonna go onto YouTube now.
Yeah. So I feel like I had a good experience of like a couple of years in both categories. And when you're if you're primarily a streamer, I think it's great for like engagement. So like that live interaction, that like you're talking to somebody and they're talking right back to you, and that's a really cool experience for like your community, your audience to have. Um, and I think it's also really good for like direct monetization with streaming culture. Like if people are incentivized to donate and to give bits and or whatever the platform monetary system is, and subscriptions. Um, but then as a result of all that, if you are not streaming, then you are losing. It's like a very active loss, versus on YouTube. So let's say like you have like the best stream of your life for 8 hours on Monday.
Mm,
Well, for the rest of that week, you don't, and for the rest of forever, you don't really benefit from that amazing performance.
mm,
And it's lost to the sands of time. But if on YouTube, if you have 8 hours of an amazing performance or work or whatever it is, let's say it's like 4 hours of filming, 2 hours of editing, 2 hours of, I don't know, the final bits and pieces, the thumbnail, 2 hours of thumbnail and title work. Okay. That 8 hours of work lives forever. And
mm.
let's say it's like a banger of a video, like Build Me a Buttercup Highway Sing Along. It continues to have success for years afterwards. That 8 hours, the best 8 hours of your life, continues to live for like 10 years. And that is a huge difference. If you continually put in 8 hours a week and it lives forever, like I'm just saying 1 day a week here, and like that kind of success really stacks on top of each other. 8 hours of success on streaming does not have that type of long tail. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, 100% and stuff like that. Like I've always seen sort of live streaming. It's a bit like not necessarily it's a bit kind of like a news broadcast in a way. It's kind of more like or sort of like a football sort of game, sort of like a soccer game, whatever, sort of like you could maybe sort of at the time when it's happening and stuff you want to watch it and you may then watch it an hour after it's happened, but it's not something that's going to have that longevity because it feels very much you really had to be there at the time. Unless it's something really special, you're not going to care about your team playing some other random team 3 years ago. You're not going to go, I'm just going to watch this whole 90-minute game. Like, you're not going to do the same with a live stream. So you're definitely right on that and stuff. But yeah, like I said, the future sounds exciting and stuff in your camp and stuff. And unfortunately, and stuff, we come right to the sort of last question of the podcast. It's been a fantastic episode with yourself. And the final question I always like to ask, if you was to give somebody a piece of advice, let's say it was like me, for instance, what's the most important piece of advice like you could give someone?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your podcast. This is a delight. This might actually, I think, be the first ever video podcast I've ever done. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I feel honored.
um, Best piece of advice. Um, for me, what works and hopefully, this is the advice. Think about, what do you want to be doing 5 years from, if you first of all, think about if you want this to be your career. Is this a hobby or a career? Do you want this to be like the thing you do, or do you want it to be just like this side thing that's like for funsies and self-expression, versus like putting in the time and dedication for like a business or like a career stuff? Then if you want it to be a career, think about how you can do it for the next 5 or 10 years, and what you want to be doing 5 or 10 years from now. What do you want it to be like? Think about basically what is your end goal, and then work backwards. Okay, how do I achieve that? So like I want to stream and then have that stream content turned into video, and then also have like these vertical sketches that hopefully are more successful on like the short form platforms. How do I do that? Okay, then it's kind of like a work backwards. I think that working backwards, what do you want it to be like, look like? What do you want your day-to-day to be like? And then work backwards from there, because that's much easier than like figuring out what is the next step forward. If you know what your end goal is, it's much easier to figure out, okay, what is the pathway to get there, and like write it all out. But I'm very methodical in how I approach things. Some people are more like creative freeform. So it depends on what that is. I guess to alternately, Ryan Tellez from the Warp Zone gave me this great uh, a piece of advice that he got from somebody, a famous comic comedian, one time. You need, in order to be like successful and a creative, you need time, and you need space.
Hmm.
The first time is you have to carve out time in your life. So you have to be like, all right, every Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 7 o'clock for 3 hours, I'm going to work on this. And so you don't let anything else get in the way of that time frame. So you have to carve out time. And then once you've carved out the time, you have to put in the time. So if you're during those 3 hours, if you're, getting distracted or whatever, then that's, obviously not going to work. So you have to put in the time. You have to carve out the time, and then you have to put in the time, and you have to have an environment, physical environment, where you can be creative and like have the tools and whatnot. If you're in a house with a lot of other people and whatever, it's going to be really hard for you to be creative versus if you can, like, if you're going to college or university and they have like a little piano room that you can escape to, and it's like quiet there and no one goes there at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. And you can either work on your music there or work on whatever your creative space. You have to have the physical environment to be creative and to whatever it is. So time and space, I would say that's
Yeah,
advice that has worked for me.
that's a really good advice and stuff like that. 100%. Like, especially that thing of like where you said and stuff like, here's your goal, here's the end goal, and then building towards that as opposed to sort of seeing what happens. I definitely say I did this with this podcast, whatever, like sort of I like when I sort of first started it and stuff like, because I've been wanting to do a podcast for like sort of years and stuff like that, and sort of I've been creating YouTube content and stuff since about 2014, funny enough. And sort of like I always sort of had this belief I could take this podcast to where it is now. I was like, I feel like there's an opportunity in a market here for me to sort of have these podcast episodes where I'm interviewing these people that I admire and stuff, and I could build up to sort of that point. And I was like, that's the end goal. And I'm like, okay, how do I get there? Okay, so I want to create more of a branding and stuff like that. I want to make sure I get the logos done, and I want to make sure I really do go for it, interview this person, and then that could help me then maybe get these people as well, and then sort of collab with them and stuff. And like literally in a year, because I created this podcast literally last year, I've gone from sort of just a guy and stuff like that, who was at sort of right at the end and stuff like that of sort of his studies, sort of whatever. I did an extra year, so whatever, and I felt a bit sort of lost about my future a little bit, sort of like I feel like I wanted to do something creative and stuff. And now I'm here 20 years old, and I've interviewed people that like, I mean, like professional voice actor and stuff like that. I've interviewed YouTubers and stuff like yourself as well from the creation realm, and like people that even like my cousin, like I got one guest on and he was like, oh my god, it's like this is amazing, because it was one of his like sort of comedy idols and I'd got to interview him. So but I knew if I could build towards that, build up to that goal, I knew I could get it. I was like, if I work and work, I might get this. And here we are today, episode 14, and the end of another fantastic episode and stuff. Before we go off, anything you want to shout out and stuff to the listeners?
Well, first, I mean, that's amazing. I love your name of your podcast and everything. I think you've done a great job, dude. Congratulations on your success that you've had so far with this. Keep going, dude. And let me know if there's anybody I can connect you with that I know who you want to reach out to. I'd be glad to do that for you.
Just saying and stuff. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Davies from the Wolf Pop from the
Yeah.
Warp Zone. That's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
all right.
I'm
All
not
right.
saying it, but
You're not saying, but you're saying, but you're not. I'll feel him out on it and be like, yo, what's good? I'll let you know. If any of your viewers want to follow my name, it's just at TJ Smith on Twitch, and on YouTube there's my main channel /TJ, or the gaming one, TJ Smith Gaming. Instagram, TikTok. Look out for the short vertical skits and sketches. That's look for those, I would say.
Yeah, and this is like I said, it's been another fantastic episode. Go check out and stuff like our content when it's out and
And
available.
go watch the
This
Warp Zone.
Yeah, watch the Warp Zone and stuff. You go watch Officer Smite. It's a fantastic series. Even if you don't like Smite, I think you could still enjoy it. So check all that stuff out. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you guys next time. Peace out.